Grave Digger Queen coming at you live from my bone pile. We got a new story from Zac and Harlii. Zac, he sent this one to me almost personally, like he had something to get off his chest. Oh, I know this site well. This looks like a man who is haunted by things he's done in battle. I've seen that sort of look on the eyes of many a soldier. The last modern battlefield I've reaped souls was Omaha Beach. It was a big job. I needed to contract help. Got Death to help me himself. He usually don't like getting his hands dirty. He's more for show with the sickle and the black cloak. Very flashy and theater kid of him. But I'm not going to throw shade. Alright. Tonight's tale is called Dead as Disco by Montsho Shelby. Zac, keep your head in the game, said Kobe in broken English. My eyes centered back on the battlefield, and all distractions fled. I sat perched in the arms of a broken windowsill, high overhead with a god's eye view. My team was right on the brink of breaching the desert compound, along with a rather motley crew of mercenaries contracted on behalf of the UN. Or at least that was their cover story. What their actual motivations were, who really knew? I was in no position to question, so I didn't, which was anathema to my inquisitive nature. Our team was running support, moving in from the left, and the mercs were the tip of the spear, moving in from the right. The bunker Alpha team was about to bust was heavy, too heavy for mere insurgents. They surely didn't build the place with their level of finance and technical skill. Winston North, a 6'8" black man and the kindest person I ever knew, off the battlefield, was team leader. He didn't trust any of the UN mercs, and he was absolutely not sacrificing any of us to this operation, especially if he didn't understand what it was. Orders be damned. Winston was the type of man that didn't give a fuck about the orders. He took whatever the top brass said as a suggestion over something to be followed to the letter. He believed in us, and his priority was always making sure we came out of things alive, and he had a good track record so far. Our unit hadn't had so much as a scratch in the year we had been active, which is more than likely why we were tasked with this unusual mission. I need you all to hold back until Alpha Team gives us actionable intel of the complex. None of you motherfuckers are to do shit. Are we clear? Said Winston. There were 5 distinct responses on comm. Me, Isabel, Clayton, Luke, and Kobe. Do you have eyes on the complex, Disco? Winston asked. I do. Quiet as the grave, Sarge. I said. Don't fucking jinx us with that shit, Isabel said, or Kizzy said. What are you on about? I said. The grave, don't say shit about dying, she said. Kizzy is just superstitious. It's that Latina in her. Say whatever the fuck you want, man, said Clayton, or Clayface. You know what's gonna jinx us? You motherfuckers not shutting the fuck up and doing your goddamn job. Winston snapped. I put eyes on the door, and Alpha breached. I opened fire with my squirt gun. Whisper was hiding behind the couch, and Rumor thought she was sneaking up on me from the kitchen. I let her. Why not? I missed on purpose and let Whisper hit me with a spray of water. I played dead as the twins gunned me down. They yelled mischievously as they took me out, which prompted Harlii to yell down from the stairs. What the hell is going on down there? Oh shit, I said. I got so lost in the moment, I didn't stop to think how destructive spraying electronics with water might be. Hide, I said to Whisper and Rumor. We all crouched behind the couch together. Harlii came down the stairs to investigate the uncharacteristically silent children. Where are you? She said. The 3 of us couldn't help but to suppress snickers. I motioned my hands to the children using a few army signals I taught them, and we popped up and soaked Harlii but good. Zac, you asshole, cut that shit out, she yelled. Me and the girls rolled on the floor laughing, but Harlii didn't think it was as funny as we did. You're all gonna be mopping this shit up off the floor. Mark my words, she said. Yeah, we got punished, but I'd be damned if it wasn't worth it. When me and the girls were cleaning up our mess, Whisper asked me an honest and creepy question, which technically speaking was on brand. You used to shoot people for real, Zac, she said. I turned my back as I was mopping up, wondering how the hell was I supposed to answer that question to a 4-year-old. I hoped that if I waited long enough, she would lose interest, but when I turned around, both of their little eyes were fixed on me. I have before. It's not nice, and it's not cool. It should only be done to protect yourself or the people you love from bad guys.
I should use a gun,
said Whisper.
Will you teach me how to shoot people?
My gut reaction was no, and I almost blurted it the moment she said it. I don't know if it was right for me to unilaterally say no flat out. Sure, I couldn't toss the girls M16s and hope for the best, but in the long run, it was a useful skill to have. Even though I explained it all pretty thoroughly, of course Whisper took away the very worst part of it, I suppose as children do. Whatever I planned to do or not do, this was not something that I could or should do without discussing it with Harlii. Excuse me for a moment, I said to the girls. I walked into Harley's room and she was deeply enthralled with editing one of our mini stories. Okay, you got a sec? I asked.
Yeah, go ahead,
she said, taking the headphones off. Whisper asked me to shoot guns. Real guns.
Doesn't seem too odd to me how much army stuff you guys play.
What do you think about it? They're too young, right? Harlii took in a deep breath and really thought about it.
Maybe. I don't think we should encourage them, but if it keeps coming up, we should consider it. If anyone can show them guns, it'd be you.
I can show them just fine, but I can only hope they understand what they're training to do, what the end result of using weapons like that are.
I put the girls in karate at 4. Why not guns too?
Said Harlii, as if she wasn't completely sold on the idea and saying it out loud as to hear if it sounded right to her. Therefore, do we really need to John Wickify them?
I was really on the fence with this, Zac, but you're sort of selling me on the idea.
It was now the rare time I rolled my eyes in disapproval. This is serious, I said.
I know it is, which is why I'm trusting you to get us through this.
I'll have to think on this one, I said. I went on a run through the narrow streets of New Orleans, blasting the Rooster in my earpods and collecting my thoughts. Picturing the girls shooting guns gave me the awful thought of someone shooting back at them. I know how silly the visual sounded, but do any of us truly have a still grip on where our minds wander to? There were heavy issues of morality that came from guns, which I wasn't sure if I was ready to teach them, that I wasn't exactly sure if they were old enough to fully comprehend. As if my moral quandary had a mystical energy to it, I got a phone call. I glanced down to my watch and the number read, Clayton Monk. I stopped running from a full-on sprint. I hadn't seen Clayton in years, and in the midst of all this gun talk, he conjured up images of the gnarliest shoot I had ever been in. "We are breached! Following Alpha on my mark," said Sergeant North. The first squad stormed into the bunker tactically. It was a group of 7 people who I had only met a few hours before the op. After Alpha entered, they gave the go-ahead to us, and we all started to file in. After I lost sight of everything but the burned-out door in the sand and the ominous dark portal below, I saw Winston ordering Clayface to guard our rear. Winston then said to me over comms, "Disco, get our backs. If you see shit, say shit." "Copy that," I replied. Guarding the rear was a boring job. That was until the times it wasn't. In the end, there was no real way to know when death was looming over your shoulder. Me and Clayton had visual on one another, and we watched the ghost town as if any sand dune could be hiding a hidden threat. We kept comms open, and after 2-ish minutes, that's when the gunfire popped off. I could hear Sarge's voice frantically giving orders. I clearly heard him saying, "Well, triple tap that motherfucker," which certainly piqued my imagination. I stopped moving altogether when I took the call. "Clayface?" I said when I answered. "What's going on, Disco?" he said back over the phone. "I had a few life changes since you last saw me." "Did you ever do that extreme sports show you wanted to do?" "I do a show. I sort of pivoted from extreme sports, though. It's about uncovering hidden supernatural occurrences." Clay audibly made an amused chuckle. I suppose that all makes sense considering. He trailed off. We both knew why it was a logical pivot, but neither of us had to say why because it was obvious. If you're calling me, is this the call? I asked. It is, man. How long will it take you to be ready? Just text me where, and I'll be anywhere in the world in no longer than 3 days. I said. There were maybe 2 or 3 times in any man's life when you made a promise that you absolutely had to keep no matter how many years had passed, and this was one of those for me. What the fuck is going on in there, Sarge? Clayface asked over comms. All we could hear was the exploding drum rolls of gunfire. I looked around from my high perch with concern. It was all clear here while all hell was breaking loose down below. After 30 seconds of screams and gunfire, I absolutely couldn't take it anymore. Someone had to cover our rear, but 2 of us didn't. Not when it was so quiet topside and so lit down below. Clayface, I'm coming down and going in, I said as I parkoured my ass down from the 3-story drop of the burned out building. I could hear Sarge over comms yelling at me. Stay up there, Disco, we're trying to make our way back. I didn't like that fucking trying shit. A wise man once said, do or do not. There is no try. And if they were struggling that hard that they weren't sure if making it back out was a certainty, this was something I was going to have to be concerned about. Clayface pat me on the shoulder as I passed him. The only reason he wasn't breaking orders and charging into that bunker was because I happened to call it first. He and I both knew someone had to guard our backs, even if it appeared as nothing was about to pop off. When I entered the bunker, it wasn't just a small bomb shelter. It was more a complex big enough to get lost in. It was so big that I could barely hear where the gunfire was coming from. It was metal with metal grating that honeycombed through lower levels on top of lower levels. There were metal corridors that got claustrophobic. My gear felt like weights after all the running I was doing, but in the end, I was better for it. I followed the sound of gunfire, which intensified. There were blind spots that plagued this place, making it the perfect opportunity for ambushes, especially at the speed I was going. In a blind spot came a hidden hostile from a room that opened up I didn't initially see. I didn't release my 2-handed grip on my marksman rifle, but twisted my waist, smashing my elbow into this mystery assailant's face, then taking a tactical step back to create distance. If this motherfucker would have just put his hands up or backed up, I may have thought twice about shooting. But even with no visible weapon in hand, the asshole lunged at me. As Cypress Hill might have said, I let the gat hum and put bullets into his head and heart. The power bowled him over. He stayed down for only a second, then rolled back to his feet like he was fucking walking it off. His face was deformed now that I had enough distance to see him. He wore camo, as if he were a soldier, but he looked like he had been dead a week, a bit bloated and purple. I went weapons free on him while stepping backwards, never letting him get close enough to me to do damage, but breaking his brain apart with each devastating shot. It took 4 headshots before this mystery soldier stayed down. When the thing stopped moving, I poked at it with my rifle barrel, eagerly anticipating the need to squeeze off more shots on the slim chance it may pull a Lazarus on my ass. I heard an explosion and heavy gunfire, so I put another safety shot into the thing's brain before pressing on. This was the first supernatural encounter I had, but it happened so fast, I didn't have time to properly digest the situation before running off to the next. The gunfire led me to a scene that had gone pear-shaped. The bunker smelled like brimstone, what with all the gun smoke in the air. I was on a metal railing looking down below. It may have been 3 stories up, or approximately 50 feet from the ground when I saw my team fighting for their lives against things that had no business being alive. There were mobs of soldiers that looked as if they had been dead for weeks, rushing my guys as if training be damned. Just a mindless horde of unthinking things. I could clearly see Kobe was down and screaming in a pool of his own blood. The mockeries of soldiers, of men, piled around him so tight I could barely see him. Sarge, Kizzy, and Luke were hotting up the room with 3 of the UN mercs doing their best to form a battle line and keep them on their side. I started firing down from my position on high at those sickos that swarmed Kobe. I didn't think about death whilst I was dealing it, which was the only way to conceivably do it in the heat of the moment. I popped 2 of the creatures' heads and saw that a few of them managed to rip Kobe's arm completely off. He fired at an endless mob with pistols screaming. He didn't have more than a few more moments of life with his injuries. It was then that I made the hardest shot I ever took in my life. I put a bullet in Kobe's head to spare him the agonizing pain of being torn apart and eaten alive. Harlii hovered over me with concern as I hastily packed a suitcase.
"Now where are you going?"
she asked me again. "Look, like I said, I can't tell you. Anything you know might potentially put you and the girls in danger," I spoke. I reached into the back closet and retrieved my marksman rifle and Beretta 22, which was in a case in pieces. It was so disassembled one might be hard-pressed to even know what it was they were looking at.
"Zac, I'm worried for you. Are you coming back?"
said Harlii, thinking the worst when she saw my dissected gun. She knew how dire a situation I must have been walking into if I was bringing out the hardware. I stopped to think about her question, and even the slightest pause made her nervous. Harlii reached into the closet and pulled her pistol case, unlocking it with a small key.
"I'm coming with you then,"
Harlii said. "I wish you could." "No, that's not accurate. I wish I didn't have to go. Look, all I can tell you is this is the one promise I've made in life that I cannot break. I don't have any other surprise life or death obligations."
"That doesn't make me feel better. If you die, you only need one for it to be too many." "Is Zac gonna die?"
said Whisper, who was in the doorway with Rumor.
"No, honey,"
Harlii said with confidence. "I'm just going to see some friends. I'll be back soon," I said, having no clue if I ultimately was lying to these children. Rumor smiled.
"Don't worry, he'll be back. So long as you don't look in the bag,"
Rumor said with absolute certainty. "What bag?" I asked. Rumor shrugged as if she didn't have any clue what it meant or why she even said it for that matter. I mean, in Harley's case, I laughed it off as coincidence, but in Rumor's case, she has absolutely no life experiences, no frame of reference to say some of the things she says, so when she speaks in prophetic riddles, it feels more genuine to me. I kneeled down to the girls and kissed them on their foreheads.
"If you don't come back, can I have your guns?"
said Whisper without any sarcasm. "Nope, so you better hope I come back," I said.
"Okay,"
Whisper said, as if that was enough of an answer to satisfy her. I turned to Harlii and kissed her on the cheek. "I'll be back one way or another, and if it is another, you have my permission to put me down."
"Not that I need it, but I will,"
Harlii said with a smile, though the little zombie joke we made was more real than she knew. The undead soldiers began climbing up the walls to get to me once I entered the fray. They swarmed. Their booted feet beat the metal grating to get to me. I had to make a life or death decision in the moment. If I turned tail, no one would blame me. But if I stood my ground, I could very well end up in separate pieces like Kobe. When the mob reached the 3rd level, I strapped my rifle to my back and hopped off the railing. The metal was strong, so when I grabbed the 2nd level, it held my weight. The creatures attempted to grab my hands and pull me up, but I released too quickly, dropping down to the next landing, then to the ground level. What was left of the team covered me as I regrouped with them. "You should have ran your happy ass away, Zac," said Sergeant Winston while popping off with his Wilson tactical. We all backed down a hallway that was relatively clear, but none of us had any illusions that we may well run out of bullets before they ran out of fight. We backed into a tunnel that could funnel the creatures at us, but seeing they weren't dying from gunfire, the impact just knocked them back a bit, barely slowing them. I figured it was movie zombie rules, and I aimed for headshots, but even that wasn't doing much of shit. Whatever it was that was making them tick was keeping them on their feet much longer than they had any right to be. When the enemies were so danger close that we were about to have to use conventional handheld melee weapons, we heard Clayface yelling from the top of the stairs. "Fire in the hole!" We all braced and looked away seconds before it all went boom, and the mouth of the tunnel collapsed, sending rock, blood, and body parts our direction. Someone's head bounced off my back. When I turned around, I noticed it wasn't attached to a body. The eyes suddenly opened and its teeth gnashed at me. Gross as shit, I know, but in some ways a triumph of the human heart. Sarge moved over to me, and we all stared at the flailing thing. I pulled my pistol and shot the thing in the head. It broke the bone and exited the back. It wasn't as lively, but it was still twitching and chomping. Kizzy put a bullet in the thing out of pure reflex, and it slowed a bit more, but didn't die. "What the fuck?" she said. Sarge raised his knee high and slammed his boot into it. He did it a few times until the thing was paste. If it was still capable of moving, we weren't quite sure. How fucked up it was now. I hoped it wasn't alive anymore. "Do you have a read on this complex?" Sergeant North said to the UN mercs that were still alive. It was a little gray-haired Asian guy who spoke named Hero. "I don't know. I have a better question. If that's the case, why were you down here in the fucking first place?" I asked. I drove to Florida off the Keys to the port of Key West. I walked into a sports bar at 5 p.m. and the Third Eye Blind song Jumper was playing. I saw Clay facing the door, half looking at a baseball game. We saw each other immediately. It had been about 8 years, but we hadn't changed that much. He was still blonde and didn't seem like he let himself go yet. He stood up nervously, and we regarded each other pensively, doing that awkward sizing each other up, unsure if we should hug it out or just get to business. Of everyone in our unit, Clay was the one that I gelled with the least. I couldn't say I liked him, but I couldn't say I hated him either. Whether we were good friends or not, the level of shit we had been through bonded us together. We settled on an awkward back pat. I looked at the baseball game being played and couldn't for the life of me figure out what people saw in a sport where you spent half of it sitting down. "You look well, Disco," said Clayface. "Yeah, you too, man," I said. Both our eyes searched the sparsely crowded bar, as if to grasp for small talk, but neither of us managed to pull any of it out. "So, you found something real, if you got me down here," I said. "I did. They're trying it again, and I found them," said Clay. "We're civilians now, and we don't have the backing of old Uncle Sam for this one. If we do what we have to do, and we make mistakes, we could get thrown in a hole and never get out," I said. "No, you don't have to worry about mistakes. They set up in international waters. Even if someone did say boo about it, legally speaking, we're safe. From our government, at least." It was at that moment Kez walked in. She was so different that if I hadn't expected to see her here, I wouldn't have noticed her on the street. 8 years ago, she was jacked, a little bulldog of a woman. She got the call sign of Kezzy because she reminded everyone of the tough-ass Latina Vasquez in Aliens 2. This woman looked unsure, a little frumpy, and a little scared if I'm being honest. Unlike me and Clay, Kez and I were pretty tight, so we hugged it out immediately. "Disco, what have you been doing with yourself?" she asked. "Oh, I've been doing a ghost hunting show, and I'm living up in New Orleans," I said. "New Orleans? Ghost hunting? What the fuck am I hearing? I didn't think you would leave New York," she said. In thinking back, it did seem funny, seeing that I only got the call sign Disco because someone thought I looked like a metrosexual from New York who looked like I went to discos. I mean, if you're hanging out with people that lived on farms, all you had to do to seem like a metrosexual was do a few sit-ups here and there and clean under your fingernails. "What about you, Kezzy?" I asked. "I have 3 kids and I live in Ohio." "Ohio? And you're calling me out for being out of character?" Kezzy smiled. "You got any kids, Zach?" "Nah, yeah, I do. It's hard to say. They're not mine, but yeah, they're stepkids, Zach. It's not that fucking hard a concept, dude." Kezzy said. Kezzy looked to Clay and gave him a half smile and a crisp head nod. No one was that friendly with Clay, even though no one was outwardly out to get him. He was like the black sheep of the family, an uncle that lived in the basement. Still family, just nobody talked to him. Is anybody else coming? I asked. Yeah, a few more. 2 more, maybe, Clay said. I turned my attention back to Kezzy. If you're not up to this, you don't have to do it. This was something we promised to do when we were damn near kids, I said. Then you back out, Disco. I'm going to finish what I started, said Kezzy. 2 more guys walked into the bar, Hero and Carl. I didn't know either of them that well because I only knew them from the incident, and they were in the UN mercenary strike force that we worked with. Hero was Japanese and didn't talk very much at all, and Carl was Vietnamese. I knew their countries of origin, but not what flag they flew. Clay nodded. We all regarded the newcomers with a quiet reservation. We can begin. I know where they are now, and I know how we're going to get back at them, said Clay. Shooting them don't do much of shit, so we need to change our strategy up, said Sergeant North. You. Sorry I didn't get your name, he said, pointing to one of the UN guys. Carl, said the young Vietnamese man. You and my man right here, said North to let him introduce himself. Jacob, said the older Canadian man. Yeah, you two take out them shotties and push them back. The rest of us can use our knives, machetes, combat shovels, what the fuck ever, and take their heads off. I'm finding it hard to believe that none of these fuckers know why we're in here, said Luke, who was sort of losing his shit to a dangerous level. Winston North saw it. Calm down, Luke. You're gonna make a mistake, and mistakes fuck all of us up. You know that shit, said Winston. I do agree, though. We only down in this motherfucker because we were backing you guys up. So if you know why we're here, you need to spill it, said Winston to the 3 UN mercs. They all looked at each other as if to silently ask permission to speak. Captain Armisen knew the entire plan, then Yuki may have known it too, but they're both dead now, so we don't know shit, said Jacob. You must know something, even if you don't know why you're down here. You must know what you came to do. You need to know if you needed to retrieve something heavy, flammable, alive, so you could react accordingly, I said. Hero sparked a cigarette and took a long drag before he spoke. Intel. We were supposed to get intel. We were to either retrieve it from a computer or find a physical copy. We were told that we may face soldiers that were hard to kill, but we were unprepared for whatever the fuck this was, said Hero in a strong Japanese accent. There's more, isn't it? Said Sergeant Winston, sensing that it was worse than even that. And then we were to eliminate anyone who was in the facility, and your team as well, if you ask too many questions. Hero went on. You were hired by the UN? Those motherfuckers? I said, confused. Back then, I thought there were some organizations that were above reproach. I thought the UN were a peacekeeping force, but I have long since had that bubble pop. Now I know that nothing a man creates can't be corrupted. Don't matter now, so we're together, and if we want to stay alive, we gotta be better than that shit, said North, looking at the UN mercs. One by one, they nodded in agreement. We couldn't instantly believe that their motivations were pure, but we could at least believe that they'd rather live through this shit than not.